Welcome to Family Meal, where we're all about memory-making meals with a splash of wine. It's a virtual brunch. This story is the first installment of 2021, y'all, and it marks a milestone, the oldest book we've ever discussed on Family Meal. Let's get into it. It's 1866, just 1 year after the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery is ratified, and 15 years before renowned black pickle entrepreneur Abby Fisher will write her cookbook in San Francisco. Malinda is writing her cookbook. Most of the recipes are for sweets. There are 70 recipes for cakes and lots of other dessert recipes. She's writing in Paw, Michigan, a farming village of a few thousand people, but she's from Tennessee. She's writing from up there because holding anti-slavery views in the South can get you robbed, or worse. She was spared the worst down there, but she did get robbed. They stole all her money twice. The first time she was 19 and was traveling to Liberia. She planned to live there, but one of the other travelers stole her money. She never made it past Virginia. The robbery ended her travels for about a decade. She settled near Lynchburg and worked as a cook and as a nurse. After Virginia, she goes back home and runs a boarding house and then a pastry shop. The shop is where she perfected all those cake recipes. But she's a single black woman, baking during the Civil War. In other words, she's a target. That's why on January 16, 1864, a Confederate guerrilla band attacked Malinda and stole her savings. Meanwhile, in Michigan, Sojourner Truth, the anti-slavery and women's activist, is living in Battle Creek, just 40 miles away from Paw. There's a network of people in Southwest Michigan who are connected to the anti-slavery cause, and networks of safe houses and churches are nearby if needed. In Paw, there's community and a chance for peace. So she moves to peaceful Paw and begins at 54 years old to write this cookbook that will become a treasure. And she writes about the classics of African-American cuisine: peach cobbler, green tomato preserves, blackberry spirits, sweet potato pie, chow chow, baked salsa pie, plus a lifetime's worth of cake recipes. That's what Malinda Russell is serving up. Anybody that can do that with food is someone worth learning about. But don't take my word for it. Make these recipes yourself. Okay, here's what we'll be having this month. We're starting with these delightfully crunchy crullers with my very own seasoning salts. They're paired with 2 varieties of sparkling sake. Second is a savory onion custard paired with a bit of pâté just for fun. The custard is paired with some floral Rhone white wines. The main course this month is a nasturtium caper salad and Madeira braised pork belly. Look at the color on that salad, and the pork belly is super tender. Since there's Madeira in this dish, it makes sense to pair it with Madeira, which is what we're gonna do. Last but not least, we have our Margery or Marjoram shortbread cookies with preserved orange cream. They're gonna be paired with a really lovely Sauterne. I'm super excited to share these delights with you, and I can't wait to get started, so I hope you stay tuned. So this recipe is one of the most craveable dishes we've ever made on Family Meal. This recipe for crullers is pretty much foolproof and gives you a crispy and crunchy savory donut that you can't stop eating. Oh, it's crunchy, and it's puffy on the inside too. It's a bit like a pretzel. What it lacks in shape, it more than makes up for in flavor, and those little squirts of fried dough coming off the side are the crispiest parts. This weird little stick of bread, this golden nugget of crispy goodness, this little slice of heaven is called a cruller, and you immediately need an entire box. Start by dumping all of the ingredients into a bowl. This fried cruller recipe gets its rise from the water, which creates steam when it hits the hot oil. It also has acid and soda, which makes the bread fluff up from CO2 bubbles. No yeast here, we're using simple technology to make delicious bread. Start mixing that into a nice dough. You can get it started in a bowl. Add the water in batches until you like the wetness. You may not need all of it. See how that's forming into a dough? Pour lemon juice over the dough and work it in. Try to soak up as much of the lemon juice as you can into the dough. Now flatten the dough into about a 1/2 inch thick patty. Cut into 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch strands and place these into the hot oil. Fry them in batches until golden. I was doing 2 at a time because of the size of my pot. Drain them on paper towel to get rid of the excess oil. These crullers are best right out of the fryer. Mine are crispy on the outside and cakey on the inside. They're a really craveable snack. Check out the link to the recipe in the description for some dip ideas. Or we have some homemade herb salts to add a flavorful kick to these crispy donuts. They're super simple to make. Just grind up some salt. And add your herbs. Then mix. I made fennel, juniper, and marjoram for the wine party. Click here to see the complete recipe with ratios.
Jumping the gun, but I'm tasting these curlers and they're delicious.
No.
Now let's talk about the wines to go with these crullers. Sparkling sake is a rice wine with bubbles. It can be creamy, slightly biting, or even sweet. So the style you pick depends on what you're eating it with, or if you're just enjoying it on its own. And no matter what style you have, serve it chilled. I picked these sakes because they both have slightly nutty flavors, which works brilliantly with fried goodies. Of course you can get sparkling grape wine that's nutty, but that's much harder to find, and the good ones can be pricey. Both of these have a hint of floral nuttiness, kind of like almond, that's common in sake, but they also are very different from one another. We have this Hakutsuru Awa Yuki, which is only 5% alcohol and is just a bit sweet. It's very clear and light-bodied. It was the more delicate of the two wines. This would also be nice with a fruity dish. Peaches come to mind, or a light salad, maybe with cucumbers. Then we have Hanagoi Junmai, which is creamier and 14% alcohol. It's unfiltered, so you can't see through it. It's a richer pairing with the cruller. You could also pair this with some light creamy cheese like sheep's milk, nuts like walnuts, or peaches would work also. Lots of herbs would be good with this too. Lemongrass, shiso, marjoram, and tarragon. Either way, the crullers are an excellent bread to serve at your feast, and your guests will swoon as they see these sakes coming toward the table.
Hazy sake is pretty nice.
Say it's hazy, pale, and slightly lemon, even though it's a sake. Melted onions are creamy, caramelized spheres with a concentrated earthy center. All that bitterness from the sulfur is gone. What's left is the essence of the vegetable. I think these onions are a cause for rejoicing. You'll see why after watching this recipe. As with all things melted, it starts with heat. This time, set your oven to 425 and put your rack at the top of the oven where it's hottest. Slice the onions in half and place them cut side up on a pan. Brush them with oil and season them with salt and pepper. Bake them for 50 minutes until they're golden and soft. When they come out, they'll be completely deflated, maybe even a bit burnt looking. But don't worry, that's just the caramelization of the sugars in the onion. In fact, go ahead and take a small bite now to reassure yourself about how good this is going to be. Next, put the cooked onions into a food processor. Stop while they're still somewhat chunky so that there are bits of onions left in the puree. Add in the flour, melted butter, egg yolks, cream, and herbs, and mix them until you have a chunky paste. After you've made the onion paste, whip up egg whites to stiff peaks with the cream of tartar. It's the air in this beaten whites that makes this souffle-like dish airy. Now fold the egg whites into the rest of the souffle mix in small batches. You want to combine the egg whites into the mix without deflating it, so do this gently. Set the oven to 400 and start preparing the ramekins. Butter the sides and bottom of the ramekin, then cover the sides and bottom with flour so the souffle doesn't stick. Your ramekin may have a little lip on it. If it does, that's how much filling you should add. If there's no lip, just leave about a 1/2 inch of space at the top of the ramekin. Place the ramekins on a pan and bake for 30 minutes, or until the soufflés are browned to your liking. Watch them through the door. You don't want to open the oven door at all if you don't have to. This recipe will work as one big soufflé too. Feel free to play around and make this recipe your own. After all, that's what Malinda did. The wines with this dish are two Picpoul. The name means lip stinger because these wines have sharp acidity. It's a kind of rare grape, but you'll find it in the Rhone Valley and the Languedoc. Both of these wines are from the Languedoc in central France. Serve these quite chilled to get the best out of them. If you like Sauvignon Blanc, you'll like these wines. They have a grassiness similar to Sauv Blanc, and they have a slightly greenish color to match. Both are very sour, but in a refreshing way. Behind the grassiness, there are a few differences in these wines. The Domaine Fontmar has a faint peach and floral flavor. The Hugues Beauvignac has some pear flavor.
This is so much fun and so interesting. I really do enjoy it.
This is delicious.
Perfectly.
Oh, good.
This one's yummy.
I'm tasting rhubarb in the Picpoul.
So here it is, the main course, pickled roast pig. Pork belly is like a slab of bacon, and we're adding butter and wine to the mix. You can't go wrong with that combination. You need the skin to be dry for this recipe, so start by patting the skin dry with paper towel. Mix the marinade ingredients in a bowl and then pour into a rectangular pan that's big enough to hold the pork belly. Place the pork belly into the pan, making sure only the meat touches the marinade and the skin stays completely dry. If the marinade level is too high, you can pour some of it out. Place this in the fridge for several hours or overnight. Make sure the pork belly is level. If one part is lower, the skin won't cook evenly. You can use something to prop up the shorter side if necessary. Spread 1 cup of salt evenly across the pork belly skin. Place into the top half of the oven. Bake it for about 40 minutes until the meat looks cooked. After 40 minutes, remove the pork belly and increase the oven temperature to 465. The salt that was poured over the pork belly should have formed a crust by now. Remove that crust and wipe off any extra salt from the pork belly skin. Once the oven is hot enough, place the pork belly back into the oven. Bake it for another 30 minutes until the skin is bubbly and crisp. Let the pork belly cool for a few minutes before cutting, serving, and enjoying.
Pork is amazing.
Well, I'm just happy. Yeah. It's good stuff.
To go with the pork, we have a nasturtium caper salad. Now, if you don't know, nasturtiums are from Peru, and they traveled to Europe first before they arrived in North America around the mid-1700s. In those days, they were used as both an herb and as an ornamental flower. Today, however, you see the leaves used on many high-end dishes, but today we're focused on the seeds. First, you'll need to pick the nasturtium seeds and wash them to remove any dirt. Now fill a small saucepan with water, vinegar, salt, and sugar. Bring that to a boil. Now add a few sprigs of dill along with the seeds to a jar. Pour the pickling solution over the pods. Seal it and set it in a dark, cool spot for 1 to 2 weeks. The pickled seeds are a little sour note in our salad, which also has red beets, orange slices, creamy cheese, and some fresh herbs. And voila, your salad is ready to eat. Don't those vibrant colors look appetizing? The wines with this course are 2 powerful Madeira. It's a fortified wine from an island with the same name. It's just off the coast of Morocco, but is part of Portugal. They started adding brandy to this wine so it could survive ocean journeys. The barrels would then be heated and cooled as the ships passed through the tropics, which oxidized the wine, deepening the flavor. It makes for a wine that tastes toasted and nutty. Besides this dish, enjoy Madeira as an after-dinner sipper, or with nuts, dried cheeses, and cured meats. We're enjoying a Rainwater Madeira from the Rainwater wine region. It's lighter in color and drier than other Madeira, which is probably the reason for the name. The second bottle is a Malmsey, which means it's made from Malvasia. This is one of the sweetest and richest Madeiras. So we have 2 very different styles here, one lighter and one very rich.
The Blandy's almost looks like it could be a bourbon or something. Blandy's is very spicy to me.
The smell is, I love it. It's so inviting for me, warm and comforting.
to the good stuff, the dessert. The genesis of this recipe is threefold. Malinda's preserved orange recipe, one of her shortbread cookie recipes, and what I think must have been her favorite herb, marjoram, because she uses it everywhere. Most people have heard of marjoram, but I don't think it's used as regularly as, say, oregano or basil. It's also mostly used in savory dishes, not sweet ones like a cookie. But you know me, I like to try things. Mix all the dough ingredients together and knead into a coherent ball. Leave it in the fridge to firm up for about 30 minutes. Roll out the dough on a cutting board. Cut into the shapes you like. I'm using a teardrop cutter. Bake these at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. Now we need to start making the frosting. Start by beating together the sugar, shortening, salt, and vanilla. It'll seem dry at first, but it'll begin to loosen up into something that looks like frosting. Add water to get it to a nice consistency. You want it so that you can spread it out on the cookie easily. To make it look nice, roll pieces of filling into a ball before gently flattening them between two cookies. And we're done. Doesn't that look delicious?
John, this cream, the orange cream, is so delicious.
Yeah, we're good.
We need a dessert beverage for these cookies, so we're having 2 Sauternes. It's nutty like shortbread cookies and sweet like the cookies. The Chateau Belingard Monbazillac is floral and herbaceous, which is nice with the marjoram. The Chateau Miselle Sauterne tastes like stone fruit, like apricots, so it's really great with the orange cream. Sauternes is a sub-region of Bordeaux in France. To make this wine, they let the grapes get infected by a fungus that reduces the water content. That's why it's so sweet. The sugars are concentrated. But neither of these wines is syrupy. When you serve them chilled, they're just perfect.
I don't know how to describe this one. It's very strong to me.
Yeah, I think of the two, I like Belingard better because maybe it has more of a point of view.
Get ready for the next episode of Family Meal, which will be about the queen of Creole cooking, Leah Chase. We have some great recipes and wine pairings coming your way. Keep an eye out for that. If you want to learn more about Malinda, these recipes and wine pairings, look at her page on the Family Meal section of winosity.com. Thanks for watching, folks. Bye.